Hi guys, and thanks for stopping down to Pete's Garage. In the last video I made about mixing and painting with epoxies, I said that I would talk more about the mixing of the epoxies themselves, and I really failed to do a great job with that. So I'm painting epoxy again today. So what I'd like to do is go through the mixing process and how to thin them out and how to make sure that they're ready for spray. Okay. Now, before I get started on that, I'd like to give you a safety note or just some safety about epoxies. Epoxies are different than regular paints. They're not urethanes, enamels, lacquers, they're different. It's a resin. It's an aliphatic resin. And what does that mean? Epoxies are a special kind of resin where you could work with it every day of your life. You could spray it, mix it, use it every day of your life and not have a problem. And all of a sudden, one day, you'll go to use it and you'll have a severe allergic reaction. Your body absorbs the epoxy and the resins and the curing agents through your skin, and after a while your body loses immunity or its ability to absorb those chemicals through your kidney. It can't filter, and all of a sudden you can develop a severe allergic reaction. So always wear gloves when you're mixing epoxies, and when you're spraying, most important, protect your lungs, because you will get epoxy dries like glue. It's there and it's there forever. It'll cause cancers, emphysemas, all kinds of bad things. So make sure that you wear a proper respirator. Now, talk about respirators for 1 second. You can buy these painting respirators. It's just something that you put over your face. It's got a little filter in it for breathing in and out. This is completely inadequate. This will not do. As a matter of fact, this is not good for painting at all. The only thing I use this for is sanding. When I'm sanding polyester resins like fiberglass and that kind of thing, this is all this is good for. Not good for painting. I wouldn't recommend it for painting anything. Unless maybe a rattle can, you're going to do some primer, you can throw one of these on to protect your lungs. The next kind, you can get away with a respirator like this, and you can see this is well worn because I use it a lot. This kind of respirator, I have chemical cartridges in here that protect from all the chemicals that are in the epoxy resins, and I have a pre-filter that catches all the dust. They're a little more expensive to get the chemical cartridges, but this is well worth it. This will work with the polyurethanes and the clears and all the base coat, clear coats, enamels, lacquers. It's good for all that, but it's really not the best for epoxy. When I spray epoxies, I use one of these. This is an air-fed regulator mask. You don't breathe in through here. This tube right here has got a regulator on the end. This clips on your belt, and it constantly feeds fresh air into the mask. So you're always breathing in fresh air. The only thing the valve does in the front is let you exhale and exhale the excess air. That's all this does. So if you can get an air-fed respirator, I would recommend this highly when you're painting epoxies. You don't want to prevent this from getting in your lungs, and epoxy is permanent. Just remember that. Permanent in your lungs, and you do not want that in your lungs at all. You don't want it on your skin, you don't want it in your hair, you don't even want it in your eyes, because your eyes absorbs chemicals very quickly. You don't want it in your eyes. You wear glasses. This protects your face, protects your eyes, your nose, your breathing. And you got to put something over your ears to prevent it from getting in your ears, because chemicals can absorb through your ears and your ear canal. Protect your body as much as possible. Now, let's talk about the mixing of the epoxy. Okay, now the epoxy I'm using is a PPG product, just like in the last video I had. It's a Amercoat 385. It comes in two parts. There's the resin and there's the curing agent. And it's a red oxide color. I believe it comes in any color you want, so you can prime it to make it easier to paint, but I'm painting red, so I got the red oxide. Now, if you're unfamiliar with mixing cups, and always follow the manufacturer's recommendations on how to mix this. This is mixed 1-to-1. So you mix one part of this to one part of this, and the easiest way to do that is to use a mixing cup like this. Now, if you see on the top of this cup, you got different gradients. If you're going to mix 1-to-1, 2-to-1, it's got a 3-to-1 and a 4-to-1 on there, and then it has a little on the side here. You can see it has 3-to-1 with 1 part reducer, and then you have a 3-to-1 with different UV reducers in there. So you get a good mixing cup like this, and it'll help you mix your materials very accurately. Now, this is used very simply. I'm mixing 1-to-1. I'm going to use the 1-to-1 scale up here. So what you do is you come down to the bottom. You fill it up to 1 with 1 part, and then to the other one with another part. If I wanted more material, I'd fill it up to here, 2 and number 2, or 3 and number 3, 4 and number 4, or if you're going to fill this up all the way, you'd fill it up to 5 with 1 part, and up to 5 with the other part. Then you're mixed 1-to-1 in this cup. Now, the two parts I'm mixing, this is very thick. You can see the curing agent is very thick. So the messy part is how do you get it from in here to in here? And what I'm going to do is very simply, I'm painting a very small part, so I don't need a lot. So I'm just going to kind of like mix it up, hold this up like this, hold the cup underneath, and drip it into the cup with this. And to get the curing agent, the red oxide, the resin, you can see the resin's a lot thinner. So I have a plastic container. I cut off a plastic water bottle, and I'll simply just scoop some out, and I'll pour it in to make sure that I get the lines right up to the 1-to-1. And when I get this, before I mix it up in the cup, I'll show you what this looks like when it's mixed 1-to-1. I'm glad this is two colors because you can see here, I got number 1, 2, 3 with the curing agent, and I'm up to number 1, 2, 3 with the oxide, the resin. So you can see it's mixed 1-to-1. Number 3 here and number 3 up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to mix this by hand. And this is where the part that comes in that people have trouble with is knowing when it's fully mixed and how thin it should be. So I'm going to start to mix like this. It doesn't take long. I mean, it's not going to turn different colors. I can look at the side of the cup here and you can see, I'll just get around, make sure it's all off all the sides. Like that. Okay, I'm going to mix that up. Now, if I look at how thick this is, you can see how thick that is. It's very, very thick. And if you can see how it comes off the stick, it's real thick, okay? Now, if you've been mixing paint a while, you can tell how the paint's running off the stick and how thin it should be. If you don't do this very often and you want to make sure you have the right viscosity, get a viscosity cup, and it's something that you pour the paint in, and you measure the time, how long it takes to come out of the cup, and then you know you got it mixed just right for spraying. Now, I can tell this is too thin, or I'm sorry, this is too thick. So I have a reducer here, and I'm just going to pour in just a little bit of reducer. Not a lot, because the reducer works very fast. Now I'm going to go gently to mix this in because it's like soup and water, concentrated soup and water. So I'm trying to mix this in. And it won't take long before that reducer will take that epoxy, and I can start mixing this up a little quicker. And you can see it start to thin out. See how it's starting to run off a lot faster? It's a lot thinner than it was when I started. So just a little bit more. Make sure it's fully mixed. And it's almost there. You can see that right now. So that's coming off the stick real nice. I can tell that it's going to spray okay just like that. And I have just the right amount of reducer in there. Now, like I said, always follow the manufacturer's recommendations when you mix your epoxy. And there's one thing you might see on the can that talks about sweat in time. And for epoxies, a sweat in time is after you mix it, like I'm doing here, after you mix it, you let it sit. And you might have to let it sit for 15-20 minutes or half an hour before you even spray it. That's just so that the resin and the curing agent can completely mix and emulsify together at the molecular level and cure properly. So check the can, check what you're mixing, see if it calls for a sweat in time, and just leave it sit there just like that before you pour it. And then I'm going to pour that right into the gun. And again, always use a strainer before you pour it into the gun. Now I have my mixed epoxy ready to roll. And I have a strainer over my paint gun. I'm just going to pour it in like that. And I strain everything. I strain the primers, base coats, clear coats. Everything gets strained. You don't want to have any little lumps in there. And I'm leaving a little thick because it's a little humid today. It's about 85 degrees and the humidity's up there. It's probably a good 80-85% humidity. Very humid day. And this is going to lay a little heavy, wet in the humidity. So I'm going to let that, you can see how that's kind of straining in there into the gun. But it's a little bit slow. So that's mixing the primer, mixing, thinning, and getting the primer into the gun. Now I wish I could show you the painting process, but this primer and this epoxy, or any epoxy, when you spray it, it gets everywhere. And if I could figure out a way to sit this camera down and film the painting process without the epoxy getting inside the camera and permanently gluing up my lens, I'd do it for you. But it's just like painting any regular paint. You just lay it on. Well, I'm going to lay on one thick coat with this, and then let it dry for a little bit, and then I'll throw another thick coat on, and then we'll talk about mixing the epoxy color, which is a different mixture. It's 4-to-1, so we'll do that after I get the primer on. Okay, you can see how the primer dries. It dries rather flat, and I have both parts hanging here, but that's what the red oxide primer looks like. Now I'm going to go ahead and mix the paint. Now, the paint itself, this is again, it's a PPG product. This is PSX 700. And you can see that the epoxy paint is a lot thinner than the primer, so I'm not going to have to thin this out at all. I might have to thin a little bit, but we'll see how it works out. Now, this is mixed 4-to-1. And I'm going to look at my scale here, and I'm going to use my 4-to-1. I'm going to come down here, and I got the paint filled up to number 2. So you got number 1, number 2. Now I have to put the hardener in here up to this number 2. You can tell that the 4-to-1, the 1 gradients are a lot smaller than the 4 gradients. Okay, so the hardener for the epoxy is a lot thinner. It's like water. And again, the question is, how do you get from here to here and measure it in small increments? And I just use a turkey baster. And I use this all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to suck up some of this hardener. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to gently fill this up until I get to the 2. You'll see the level start to rise there. Yep. I'm looking to get to that 2, and there it is. Okay, 2. That works very well. And you can rinse out the turkey baster, and it just rinses right out. Now, I'm going to mix this. We'll see how it mixes up. I mix this up, see how thick it is. Might be just perfect for painting. This doesn't have a sweat in time, so I don't have to worry about letting it sweat in. So I'm going to mix that and let's see how it comes off the stick. Okay, it's coming off the stick nice and smooth. It's ready for paint. I can just spray this right as it is, so I don't have to thin this out at all. So the epoxy paint mixed 4-to-1 is thinner than the metal etching primer that was mixed 1-to-1, so I won't have to put any reducer in this. I can paint this, I can spray this right out of the gun. So I'm just going to strain this and spray this on just as it is. That's how you mix the epoxy. And the same as with the primer, I'm going to strain the paint as it goes in the gun. It's pretty expensive paint, so I want to try and use as much as I can, only mix what I can use. I can always mix more, but it really sucks when you got to throw away expensive paint that's already mixed. And that's fairly thin, so it goes through the strainer pretty quick. It's ready to shoot right out of the can as soon as you mix it. So I'll put this on and we'll see how that looks. So there you have it, everyone. That's mixing epoxies for painting. Now, I didn't use anything fancy. All I use is my DeVilbiss finish line spray gun. I bought this from Eastwood, and you get them in a kit. You can get like 2 spray guns for like 160 bucks. It's totally worth it because it makes these jobs very, very easy. It's not very complicated. I hope this is more informative than the last one, and I hope I made it clear on how to mix epoxies and how to thin them and apply them. And as usual, I appreciate you stopping by Pete's Garage.